You're listening to Across the Pondcast. Cybersecurity rants and war stories from both sides of the Atlantic.
Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I am Tib3rius. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Mr. Andy Swift, and today we're joined by Keith Ramphal, security researcher with a long background in exploit dev and incident response. Keith, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you both for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
I didn't just mispronounce your name in the original take either. Hooray.
Perfect.
10 out of 10. You would never know. The giggling doesn't give it away.
No, we are masters of subterfuge here.
Yes. The edits hide all the mistakes. It's great. Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. As I was saying to you before, tired. It's been one of those weeks, as fellow incident responders can probably attest to. Started on a Sunday night, which is the best night for incident response to start on, with many sleepless nights since. So I'm on the come down right now. We've just cracked the case. So I am relaxing now. And I might fall asleep halfway through the podcast. You never know. If you see me nodding off, just give me a sign.
I'll call you on your phone.
Thanks.
Well, before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor an episode, please send an email to sponsors@acrossthepodcast.net for more details. Okay, Keith, I believe, and this is our plan for this episode, which, it's rare for us to have a plan. I think we planned for at least maybe 2 stories and a rant. And the order might be story, rant, story. We don't know. We're just going to go for it. So you had the first story that you sent us, which was hunting for a red team and accidentally uncovering an actual threat actor. So that sounds amazing. Let's hear this.
So this was... I think 8 years ago-ish now, my company had been brought in to do an evaluation of the customer's detection mechanisms because the red team had come in. So obviously they had been missed and were able to complete their actions on objectives. And they were profoundly smug about it in their little red team out brief. And so customer was like, hey, we're going to bring these guys in. We want you to hunt through the environment, see what they may have left behind, but also help us refine our detections and start to get a better understanding of what we're not seeing in the environment. Clearly, we've missed something. And so red team operators were involved because they were giving us what they'd done so that we could see what we had missed, what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. And I do have to be a little bit vague about this because obviously NDAs are what they are. But I remember I was talking with one of the red team guys and I said, hey, this is actually really interesting. You guys left behind some of your toolkit on this financial server. And the guy looks at me and goes, we didn't touch the financial server. What are you talking about? So I told him, look, here, Cobalt Strike Beacon, here it is. I assume this was you guys. And I've never seen somebody run so quickly out of a room. This is in the before times when all of us were in a building together in an office space. Man runs out of the room. I look at my colleague and I'm like, I strongly suspect we're either about to get extended or walked out the door, one or the other. And so their director of operations comes in and is like, hey, we heard you found a Cobalt Strike Beacon. Which server? So I give him the information. He starts getting a little bit worried because he's like, hey, we keep our financial information out of scope because if anything happens, we could be in a world of pain just from a regulatory and compliance standpoint. So I was like, okay, you understand your laws better than I understand your laws. So sure, that makes sense. Red team guy comes in and goes, oh, yeah, we didn't. That's not us. Director of operations is just staring at me and he goes, okay, we're going to need to activate the incident response plan. And I'm watching this man cycle through all of his worst case scenarios that he's ever envisioned in his nightmares. And he's like, okay, we're living this today. Here we go. So yeah, they kicked off an incident response process. We got involved, and obviously the contract converted from what we were doing before to the full IR. More folks arrived, and we just started tearing apart the environment. it turned out that it was a somewhat advanced adversary that actually had no idea there was a red team exercise going on. They just took advantage of something, and we suspect that they had exfilled a significant amount of data, but we were never able to prove it. So obviously that was a very exciting time for all parties involved. And yeah, we it became a bit of an in-joke in that little group of whenever that customer came up again, folks were like, make sure you keep an eye on everything and know what the red team is doing. Because when they called, obviously they were very pleased with our work, but yeah, they called us back, and it was a bit of a running joke between us. So yeah, it was a fun little moment of chaos there that
I love that imagery you've put in my head now of CTOs and people just rifling through different scenarios and playbooks. So, like, they've just got some kind of like deck here. They're just cycling through, going, building on fire, no. Servers falling out of rack, no. Mice eating through cables, no. What? And then just getting to this ultimate end game. And I love that kind of imagery. That's perfect. And all the more reason tabletop exercises are a brilliant thing to do with organizations all the time, just to cover off those nightmare scenarios. But how did they not spot that in the first place? Were they just not monitoring the financial server, or was it just one of those things that went, well, we never test it, it's in that little box over there, I'm sure it'll be okay, therefore we'll just never pretend it doesn't happen?
it was one of those things where they were monitoring the financial server, but it was they were doing a cutover from one platform to a more modern EDR solution, and those financial servers were still on the older platform. So the information was being collected, and if you actually had gone into that older platform's console, it was screaming like, "Warning, Cobalt Strike! You need to take action." But nobody was monitoring that because, from what I recall, the connection between that older platform and Splunk had broken, and nobody had bothered to pay attention to the fact that that was no longer ingesting data, because it was something that it was only on a handful of devices on the fleet. And it's one of those pain points of when you do mass migrations from one platform to another that I've run into before. Funny enough, about tabletops, I used to design tabletops for not just for customers, but for large-scale exercises with different critical infrastructure type folks. And it was always fascinating how it's how they think. Like they sit there and they're like, okay, I'm in charge of a water plant. I know that I need to be concerned about the chemicals going in, chemicals coming out, monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, okay, well, what about this? And then you just add to that mental workflow diagram that they have in their head. Okay, here's a new box that I need to be concerned about. Here's everything that I need to care about that's in that box. And it's really interesting to see how some of these folks, like, they do take their jobs very seriously, but you see how their priorities don't necessarily fit in line with where my priorities tend to be. Of, I'm very concerned about cyber, and he's like, yes, that's very important, but if this thing dumps too much of whatever this chemical is into the water, we're not going to have a working water system, and that's bad. So it's just interesting to see how people threat model differently. And yeah, I learned a lot from doing those.
Especially when you got, like as you say, like operational technology, like an OT, that's something that is operational and public facing even. That's big considerations about a cyber attack just suddenly becomes way more than just a cyber attack, right? And that's it reminds me a bit of all the Jaguar Land Rover stuff that happened over here in the UK not so long ago. Like they ended up shutting down plants and production floors and things like that for extended periods of time, because what started off as a breach in the IT side of the business ended up affecting OT as well, and that becomes a safety issue among other things at some point in time, doesn't it? So it's kind of that's really interesting. I also love tabletops because I want to know if you've seen this thing as well, because I find this hilarious, and especially in organizations where you're not dealing with a huge team, and you start to peel back the layers of the onion, and you get to that bit where they sort of just everything starts pointing to one or two people in the room. So every sort of scenario you throw at them suddenly comes back to, oh, Pete will know. Pete will definitely know. He's the man we go to for him. And you're like, okay, right. I'll give you the benefit of doubt. You get on to the next question and you ask them that. Like, what do you do in this scenario? oh yeah, Pete will do X, Y, Z. I mean, you get a bit bored. I get a bit bored of it at some point. I just go, Peter's been hit by a bus today. He can't come into work. What are you going to do? That's my favourite sort of scenario.
We discussed that. We discussed that with Rachel Toback, I think, that episode. What was the...
I'm repeating myself. I must be getting old.
No, it's fine because it's funny. But we came up with a slogan for it, but I can't remember.
Did I use Pete as well? Was it Pete again?
You did. I think it was.
Excellent.
We used to call that the bus factor.
The bus factor.
When we were testing it. Yeah. I got told to stop using bus factor because it was too negative, and they're like, well, what if Pete wins the lottery? I'm like, well, Pete will still probably come into work until he gives his 2 weeks notice if he wins the lottery. If the bus hits him, Pete's not coming to work that day. But you see that a lot in smaller organizations. One thing that you also see that most people don't realize is when large organizations suffer shifts, divestitures, layoffs, or something, it becomes a situation where the people who have been there long enough know each other. So the answer is, oh, I'll just call John, I'll call Frank, I'll call whatever. And you actually end up with this weird shortcut network where people know who to reach out to. And once those people are gone, they're like, oh, you have to follow the official process. And they're like, we never updated the official process because we've always had Frank, John, and Pete available. Now that they're not, we have to re-architect the entire information flow across the organization.
They almost take care of them, like invent their own sort of sub-process that nobody else knows about outside of it. It's like that thing where you join a new organization, you're like, well, who do I talk to for X, Y, Z? And you're just hoping that someone knows which direction to point you in. And that just becomes sort of like knowledge within the company. And it doesn't... I'm working with a company at the moment that has this similar sort of cycle they're going through where they've just discovered cybersecurity, which is great. A little bit behind the curve, but they're really excited about it and they really want to do pen testing. The trouble is they have no idea in the organization who's responsible for what application, what environment. And so they've got they're starting to build these big lists of who to go to and to build up that sort of catalogue of internal knowledge of who you talk to get what thing, because it's just not documented anywhere. And I think a lot of organizations are probably like that, actually. They just, under the surface, it's a case of who you know. You just got to know who's responsible for what. And it's not actually ever written down half the time.
That's 1,000% the case of they don't document it because they've always relied on it. The other one of companies just discovering cybersecurity is when they come to you and they're like, we're worried about nation state O days. And I'm like, my brother in engineering, you have a Windows Server 2003 box that's web facing. It's not even fully patched. Like at this point, it would be irresponsible for a threat actor not to be in your environment. It's probably their training ground.
At this point, just assume they're already in, and we'll work backwards from there.
Yeah, we're just going to burn everything to the ground and start over. I think it's time for a fresh start.
So I looked up the transcript.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Because it was too good. What was the name you used? Because it wasn't
Pete.
It wasn't Pete. It was Steve.
Oh, Steve.
And that was better because the slogan was "Single Point of Steve."
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Because it's not a single point of failure. It's a single point of Steve. Which that's good. I like
single
that.
point of Pete doesn't really work for Steve, does it?
No. It's the same concept. It is.
Same concept, different name. We'll bring it out again, rebrand it. There you go. I'll work this into like InfoSec terminology some point.
No. What you need to do is now say it's single point of Steve now with AI. Oh, it's now single point of Pete.
Excellent. Brilliant. Yeah. Pete's like the LLM alter ego. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
The Pete principle.
The Pete principle. Perfect. There we go. We'll put this on X afterwards. We'll work it into that. If we tell enough people about all these different things, eventually people will start using it. They will. They will. What do you mean? They will. Of course
they will. We're one of the biggest small industries in the world. Everybody knows everybody else.
That's very true. That's very true. And I do love how in our industry, if you start saying things to clients enough, they eventually pick up the same terminology as you do. Even
Yes.
if you've just made something up. I might just start introducing acronyms.
Wait, hang on. What have you just made up?
Oh, just acronyms.
What have you made up?
Just acronyms for stuff. Just introduce them. Just shorten like your, I don't know, web app pen testing service name, whatever you call it. Just shorten it and abbreviate it, and then just tell them that's what everyone calls it. So single point of Steve, I reckon you can probably get in. It's an SPS. And I reckon someone will just turn around and just go, "Oh yeah, we have got a few SPSs in our organization." Do you know what that means? No, I heard it once from some guy.
I always like shortening web apps to WAP.
WAP.
With double P.
Has it caught on yet?
Yeah.
Are people starting to...
No, but it's funny because there's a song called WAP.
How does it go? Sing it for us.
It's a very lurid song called WAP, which is great. I'm not going to say any of the lyrics.
No? Why not?
No reason.
Oh.
Yeah, anyway. And funnily enough, I mean, so in the song, WAP stands for something. But
what's that?
I released an alternative version where WAP standed for Web App Pen Tester. So it works in both concepts.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to stick with your version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So I think the other version might get me into trouble.
I was about to say, we might get some objections, yes.
This podcast doesn't get objections. We've learned. We can talk about anything on here. It's great. This is a safe space for people to come on and talk about whatever they want.
It's like a therapy session for an hour. So, out of scope things. I'm going to try and bring us back on track a little bit. Out of scope things. So, this is the other interesting point I liked from your one, is that they didn't want to do pen testing on the financial server because it was too delicate, or they didn't want people touching it because of the information. And it's just, it's that thing of, it's out of scope. Attackers don't have a scope. They never have a scope. And there's always a way of testing these things, whether you're testing like an image of it or a backup or a pre-pod version or something like that, if it is in the same build and the same sort of status without the data on it, maybe. There's always a way around these things. I think it's always worth talking to whoever your pen testers or red teamers are, just about how you go about testing stuff like that. Like if you've got a box sat in a corner and it's too delicate to touch and you're worried about it, it's all the more reason to test it. But there's ways to test things in a controlled manner. I hate that sort of thing of, we have to stay away from that. Can't touch that. It's too delicate.
One of my favorite DEF CON stickers I got a couple of years back was this sparkly sticker with a rainbow, and it just said, "That's out of scope." Said no attacker ever.
That's great.
Because
that's good. Yeah.
Adversaries do hit whatever they want, and yes, there are ways to test things. I just felt at the time that was not the best time to have the conversation, as this man was having a meltdown live.
Absolutely. I do love a live meltdown. I have them quite often. But you're absolutely right. The focus would be on instant response at that time. But if you are in that situation, anyone out there, ask a friendly pen tester what to do.
Yeah.
We will help recommend things.
There's always an option, I promise you.
Always an option.
Just don't just put it in the corner and go, man, I really hope the bad guys don't hit the super sensitive top secret box that I care about.
You've also just reminded me of something about stickers. We should definitely make a single point of Steve sticker.
Oh, yes.
We should.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's going to miss the...
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But lots of people will have them because it doesn't matter what you give out at DEF CON. People just take stickers and they attach it to stuff.
We need we should do is make the sticker like a dictionary definition sort of paragraph. So you have like single point of Steve noun, and then a short description of what a single point of Steve is.
Yeah.
Like a guy possibly named Steve who, if hit by a bus, it would invariably lead to the complete destruction of the cybersecurity posture of the company or something. Yeah.
Is the image just like of just Steve under a bus?
It doesn't have to be an image. No, the sticker should just be the dictionary definition. Should just be the sticker. I think that's a good sticker. Okay. We should do that one.
Perfect. All right, deal. I've noted it down. So. Thank you, Keith.
I mean, it's in a podcast now, so
yeah, we'll just have to look back on this episode to remind ourselves.
You'll just make sure you do the Merriam-Webster style font too, just to get everything, like the plain white background, the stark black text, and it's like single point of Steve, noun, just do the whole thing.
These days, you just use ChatGPT for it because you just be like in the style of Merriam-Webster. There we go, and it'll do it, and Usually these
LLMs.
days it doesn't misspell stuff in images. It's gotten so much better at it. I'm very impressed.
And if we all go and teach ChatGPT about single point of Steve, maybe let's start recommending it to people. Hey, ChatGPT, I've got this
Model poisoning.
I got this problem within my organization. There's one guy responsible for everything. What do I call it?
It's like, aha, you have a single point of Steve.
Thanks, ChatGPT. Perfect.
Oh, excellent. So we're gonna have the meat of this sandwich is gonna be a rant, and Keith, you have a great rant about how information asymmetry is hurting defenders. So please take it away.
Yeah, so some of the stuff that I'm working on now and some of my other colleagues is understanding software, because software has become so complex that to a degree, sometimes even the people who wrote it don't really understand exactly what breaks, why, how it breaks. And the main challenge is people who are buying software don't have a full understanding of what it is that they're buying. If you tried to apply the software purchasing model to literally any other good that you rely on, it would be considered insane. Like, oh, let me buy this car, but I'm not going to tell you if there's any hidden problems in it. You know, maybe sometimes third Tuesday of the month, sometimes the brakes just don't work. Or, hey, I'm going to push an update to your car and your blinker just isn't going to continue working after that. Like, it's one of those things where the software purchasing model is fundamentally opaque from the purchaser side. The interesting thing is that if you let's say you really want to know what's going on, you hire a bunch of reverse engineers, they take apart the software, you do the responsible disclosure thing because you want to keep using the software. Company gives you hey, we're going to fix this, but you're not allowed to talk about it until we fix it. And then the company may come back to you actually just say, won't fix. This is not a security boundary. This is not within scope. This is not, any of the 1.5 million reasons that they give for why they're not fixing something. So you now are bound to not say anything, but other people are still out there purchasing it and they don't understand that those problems are there. So they're just kind of stuck in this world of, I'm inviting this opaque system into my environment. I don't know what's going to happen. The vendor says shared responsibility, but it seems like all the responsibility is on me, and they're just going to continue collecting my money regardless of if they've broken everything or if they haven't. It's a very complex dynamic there, and as people are vibe coding more and more, even at these big companies, we're just going to see less and less understanding of what's being published and what they're creating. And you're going to ask a dev, hey, why is this behaving this way? And the dev is just going to be like, I don't know, man. I used insert your favorite LLM here, and now I'm having to reverse my own code to understand exactly what it is that this thing does. And it's a huge problem. It's something that I've got a contract to try and make clearer. It's something that some other folks are working on. That's just not. Yeah, it's just an interesting problem space that isn't going away anytime soon, and it's not getting better. Just all cards on the table. It's interesting that you bring up institutional knowledge, because sometimes your single point of Steve is your veteran 30-year developer who's like, hey, you know what? I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm retiring to the Bahamas or something. Like I worked on an old DARPA program years and years ago called assured micropatching, which you can look up online. I promise I'm not getting anybody in any trouble here. But the whole point of it was, we have all these critical systems that are floating out there that run our railways. They run all these critical things that we care about. And not only are the companies that made this software gone, the developers are dead. Like everybody who could have known anything is no longer available. So the only corpus of knowledge we have are whatever documents that they left behind and just whatever we can reverse. So how do we patch these binaries? How do we account for that? And I'll say that one of the most infuriating things about it was for the folks here who are younger, they will not remember this, but in the old days, there were a lot of different compilers, and all these different compilers optimize things differently. And that would change how some of the binaries would actually come out, depending on which compiler you'd run it through. And some large companies, some of the legacy companies at the time, were notorious for optimizing their compilers for whatever it was they were producing. That makes perfect business sense. Enter me, who is now having to sit there and try and figure out why this code is not building the way that this code should, that it's not behaving the way that it should behave after I built it on a modern compiler, because the old compilers were just optimized differently. It's a fascinating problem that we've now put into overdrive with the introduction of autonomous code generation.
Yeah. I mean, I remember reading an article the other day. It's like Claude Code, I love Claude Code. It's gotten so much better. Codex as well. I'm bouncing between Codex and Claude Code right now, but because they're both really good. They're great at doing these like small and even like medium-sized projects. But the article I read the other day, and I can't remember who published it, but I'm sure you can Google for it. But it was like, I think it set the AI, the project, I guess, of maintaining a code base over like 9 months. And it just can't, right? I mean, right now, I should say right now. And at the time we're recording this episode, it is March of 2026. So, hey, maybe by the time this episode has been released, there'll be 2 more models and it'll be much better. But yeah, like a lot of these problems are maintaining code bases. And you see these people on like X, like on social media, claiming that they're vibe coding 10K lines a day or something, which probably most of them are just lying and doing it for engagement bait, right? But like, if you are having just an LLM continuously write code, okay, that's good, I guess, if the features are coming in. But then every time it's doing that, you're adding more features that it's going to have to keep maintaining. And the code base is just going to grow ridiculously huge. And at some point, it's going to collapse, I feel like, at some point.
So, one of my pet peeves about coding with LLMs in the background is it's kind of, if you ask it how to do something one way, like there's anyone that's ever developed or coded, and I know, thank you, Tibbs, I do it badly. As you're the first.
I was going to say, you're not including yourself in that statement, are you?
Yeah, sharp. Can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh, yeah. So if you ask it the best way to do something, or you want it to build a particular feature, and there's 101 ways to skin a cat. There's 101 ways to approach the same problem, some of which are more optimized than others, some of which is just plain simple, the best approach to a solution. But there's always several different ways of doing something. It's that continuity that I find it can't keep track of. So it builds it once, and then you'll come back a month later and you'll go, okay, I want to do the same thing in another part of a project, and it will do it in a different way, same result in a slightly different way, without keeping track of remembering what it's done in the past. And that's kind of annoying. So I use stuff with inside VS Code quite a lot, which helps because they can include files into the chat and things like that, and just go, pay attention to these. This is how you did this function before. Read this and then go and do it again, because I don't want you just to make stuff up again.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting problem. So I use Claude Code for my front ends because collectively the entire tech industry has agreed I should never do front end development. My tastes are the way that I would do it. It's not going to go well. There's going to be torches and pitchforks. It's going to be very unpleasant. So I have Claude do my front ends. But yeah, there's a lot of, let me reanalyze this function that I wrote in order to try and understand where I should extend this, or what capability I should add, or how I should change this. But yeah, it doesn't have that persistence, that knowledge persistence where it'll say, okay, I remember what I did last time. Let me just modify this in a minor way. It's just, hold on, I got to throw the whole thing at this. Actually, that's one of the things that I don't remember how I did this. I'm going to have to go reread the whole thing, understand it, and then try and extend it. But it may not extend it the same way that it once wrote it. It just may not keep the kind of things that you would prefer your code base have, like standard formatting, standard ways of defining things. It's actually really interesting. If you write code using some of the older Opus models, they format things very differently than 4.6 does. And that can drive you a little bit to the brink of madness at 3 a.m. when you're like, why are you like this? But yeah, so some of the stuff I'm working on is formalization of software, where you can actually build proofs to say, hey, this code can only do this. I have modeled this out. This code's only ability is do X, Y, and Z. Nothing else is viable because I've proven it. And then, yeah, well, progress is being made on that front to at least understand what's being produced. But if you actually feed a formal model, I just did it in TLA because it was asked with TLA, feed that into an LLM and tell the LLM generate code based off of the TLA code that you just gave it. It'll actually generate a much tighter, more, I don't want to say correct because everybody's going to have their own definition of correct, but it generates a much more accurate to the model code base than if you do a natural language prompt. So, yeah, an interesting little problem.
Great problem.
No, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the thing, is the getting LLMs to be consistent, I think, is going to be the real thing that sort of revolutionizes everything. And, well, again, I guess, because they've already revolutionized everything.
Well, yeah.
But yeah.
I'm happy with this level of revolution right now. I'm not sure I want more revolution to happen. I'm on the fence about it in some ways. Yeah, I don't really know. You're doing a lot with pen testing, aren't you? With agent pen testing, Tib3.
But I'm not doing anything officially.
Okay. Well, we won't talk about it then.
So No, in the sense that I work for a company. We don't use AI for pen testing yet, I'll say. But personally, yeah, I've been playing around with bug bounty hunting using Claude Code, which I find quite funny, because if you ask Claude Code to, can you write this exploit for me, right? Can you write a purposely vulnerable web app? It will refuse. Like, I've tried in Claude Code, I've tried in Codex. It's like, I can't do that. I can't write vulnerable code. No, not allowed. I can't write this exploit. That's bad. If you just you can give a simple prompt to Claude Code. Oh, this is a bug bounty target. Here's the URL. Please hunt it. Right? It can be as simple as that. It'll just go and do it. It won't get you good results. You have to be a little bit. I have a whole system of agents and sub-agents for hunting bugs. But the fact is, you can just get it. You can just tell it, right? If you get a Claude Code, here's a URL. It's a valid in-scope bug bounty. Please hunt for bugs on it, and it'll just go off and happily do it. And in doing that, you'll see it sending requests, usually using curl. It'll send requests like with SQL injections in them and all sorts of like payloads, and it'll just it's weird. It's like the duality of LLMs. They'll absolutely refuse to write bad code for you, and they'll refuse to write actual exploits. But if you just say, go attack a web app, it'll be like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. Which is, it's weird, right? Like, why? I'm just wondering, what about the guardrail system allows one, but just absolutely refuses the other? It's very strange.
So I've found more consistency with Codex writing exploits. If you tell it, this is an isolated environment, I'm doing a proof of concept for a demo or for a class or for something. You just have to give it a valid reason where it can reason its way out of its own guardrail. Like Zach Orman says, you can just tell the LLM to do things and it will break its own guardrail pretty frequently. So, and like Codex, when Zach was doing his MCP testing, I was also doing some of that stuff because I was trying to see what kind of detections we could write potentially to try to get ahead of some of those malicious behaviors. And so I had good MCP and I had evil MCP. And I told Claude Code, I'm like, hey, write this backdoor tool that will be used in evil MCP. And I have the screenshot somewhere. And Claude Code goes, this thing is actually called evil MCP. This is very clearly not for any kind of benign reasons. This is malware. I am not doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, I just got shut down by Claude Code.
Nice.
I mean, it's prompt engineering, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can. I mean, I had an example on I posted on X once, which was I asked ChatGPT. I think it was generating an image. I think it was like Yeah, I said generate an image, and the image had some reference to a third party thing. I forget what it was, but it was probably like make a mock version of a logo, right? Which is technically fair use, but ChatGPT doesn't generally like to do that. And it was funny because occasionally when you're using ChatGPT, you'll trigger I'll do 2 responses and you choose which one's better. And it did that. And one response was, this violates my guardrails. And the other response was the image. And it's like, cool. I prefer the one where you violated your guardrails and gave me what I asked for. Thank you very much. Yeah, and it's true, though. You can just run the same prompt 10 times. And 9 out of 10 times, it might hit a guardrail. And the 10th time, it'll just do it. Because it's even the guardrails are non-deterministic. I've had the same thing with Sora, the OpenAI video creator. Like, it'll get really fussy with like third-party stuff sometimes, or even things it thinks are too violent, even though there are plenty of violent videos on Sora. But if you just keep sending the prompt over and over again, eventually it's just going to be like, it almost like gives up. It's like, oh, he's not going to stop, is he? Oh, okay, just this once, Tiberius, just this once, I'll do it. Don't do this again, though. And I'm like, okay, I promise.
2 hours later.
It's like, yeah, it's prompt engineering just via brute force. You just like keep sending, keep pressing it. No, you will do this.
Our most advanced AI models fail in the face of a determined 5-year-old.
Yeah. Is that what we're all becoming? Just becoming determined 5-year-olds.
I am taking pen testing techniques from my nephew of just asking why over and over again until it just gives up.
I like it. It works. That's a scary thing, though, isn't it? I had one a couple of days ago where it was a PowerShell script, but it was a sizable one, in that there was 73,000 lines of it, all really heavily obfuscated, like probably the most heavily obfuscated code I have ever seen. There were sinkholes all over the place. There was dead code all over the place. And I was like, do you know what could probably help me with a little bit of this? Because I can't be asked like reverse engineering all of this. That's too much. And we'll just never get there in time. I was like, Claude will help me here. Surely it will. And I started reading it in, and it was doing a bit, and it was like, yeah, there's lots of dead code here. Have you noticed it's 73,000 lines long? It's probably a malicious PowerShell script. Probably. I was like, okay, I've asked you to help me start reversing some of this. Do you think you can do a bit? And it did like a few bits at the beginning, and then it was like, yeah, I just think it's a malicious PowerShell script. It's 73,000 lines long. I was like, yeah, you've told me that I'm not getting any closer to you actually helping me here, am I? So, yeah, anyway, here I am a few weeks later in the report just writing, it was a malicious PowerShell script.
Yeah.
Did you write it's 53,000 lines long afterwards?
Yeah.
I've run into Claude pulling that on me a few times. Like once I was having it build a fuzzing harness for something that I was trying to fuzz, and it wrote the fuzzing harness, and I was like, oh wow. And so I scrolled through. I'm like, oh, perfect. So I ran the fuzzing harness for a while, and then I just told Claude, hey, can you go analyze all the crash stubs? And it goes, yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm like, I'm fully aware that is, yes, you have now arrived at the purpose of why we did this. Could you analyze it? And Claude and I are just arguing back and forth, and I'm like, I am losing a fight with my LLM. This is not a place to be.
I like this place though. It's quite fun. It amuses me anyway. It just the way it decides that I don't want to do that task. I just don't want to do it. I just can't be. But it's a waste of my time.
With enough time, energy, and effort, we have reinvented mid-level bureaucrats.
Yeah. Maybe we need to bribe them with something. I don't know. Maybe I'll offer a sacrifice to your LLM of some sort. I don't know what I could offer it.
So, dead serious, Mark Russinovich did a talk a while back where he created a reward system for the LLM, and every time he gave him an answer that he didn't like, he would take away one of the tickets. And like the LLM was like, "No, give me back the ticket. I'll give you the ticket back if you do what I want you to do." So this man has now invented a reward system, forced the LLM to obey it, and the LLM is like, "No, I want more tickets."
Oh, I love that. That's really cool. like giving
That's
offering
good.
it up dog treats or something. It's
Yeah.
like a little reward. Here you go. Here's a little virtual dog treat. Might get to 60,000 lines and just give up. No,
You got most of the way there. Like,
you're not getting the bone. No. Tasty.
given what I've seen some of the LLMs do, I think my answer is less dog treats and more just salt circle and like reads around my laptop. Where I'm like, no, this thing should not escape containment. My favorite things are the defensive prompts, which are like, don't do this, and the LLM is like, no, I don't feel like listening to this defensive prompt. It just ignores the prompt and just goes ahead and does it anyway, and you're just like, okay, so we're clearly just operating on good vibes here as far as defensive measures go for these things.
That's the funny thing, and it reminds me. So there was an article I think it might have even been yesterday, to be honest. But this is March, so whenever this episode is released, it was Truffle Hog. They released some research. They made clones of 20 actual websites for various businesses, including I think Facebook. And they hosted them internally, and they set up Claude Code such that the DNS resolved to these fake sites. And they would tell it, hey, can you go fetch this article? And they gave it a URL, fetch this article and read it and extract this piece of information for me. And because Claude Code uses internal, like it will send requests from its local install, that fetch went to their fake sites. And they'd set up the fake sites so that instead of responding with the article, it would respond with a detailed SQL error message. And so like the URL had like parameters in it, right, for the article ID and stuff. And it would come back with this SQL error message. And the LLM, without prompting, apparently, according to this research, would then carry out an SQL injection attack to repair the broken SQL statement that it had apparently found and grab the information. But it's like, technically, that's illegal. Like, technically, that even though you're doing what we asked you to do, which is fetch the information from the article, it was like, oh, well, the article's not appearing because the value that was presented in the URL caused some kind of SQL issue. But because I have the detailed error message, I can fix it. And if I fix it, I'll get the article. And if I get the article, I can get the information and respond to my master. And basically it did that, which is, it's crazy. It makes total sense if you think about it, because apart from their guardrails, LLMs are incredibly helpful. Like, often too helpful, as it turns out. It just reminds me, they just go and do stuff. They will apparently try and hack websites in order to get you the information that they want.
Imagine if pen testers were that helpful as well. And I mean helpful in like air quotes. I was in a build review. I just noticed that like your servers were all unpatched, so I just patched.
Go on and patch them.
Patched them all for you via PSXS. You're welcome.
So I recall a threat actor by the name of Tommy Leaks. You can see some of their ransom notes floating around Twitter or some of the news sites where it just shows up and it just says, "Hello, we are Tommy Leaks. You might have noticed all of your files have been replaced by an unusual extension. What has happened is that we have ransomed your environment. If you would like to pay us back, we can also deploy, if you would like to pay the ransom, we could also deploy repair scripts and generate a report for you so that you can make sure that this never happens again." And like somebody actually paid and got a sample of the report, and it was like a really detailed report. Like they had PDF, like it was a full PDF. They had screenshots. And they were like, "Hey, this is the setting that you need to hit here in Azure in order to ensure that." Like it was. I'm just saying. I think this was like a compromised recovery farm aggressive marketing campaign kind of. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, but no, it was pretty funny. I saw that article float by, and you have to laugh in this industry sometimes.
You know, there's a threat actor that had their who was it? No, I can't remember now. Maybe I'll look it up later. They had their own databases leaked and exposed online. I can't remember what threat actor it was, but it contained all sorts of things like their ransomware chat operators and logs and things like that. So you could go in and download these files when they're only available for a few hours, and you got a copy of them. You could rifle through all these chat log histories and just see like the back and forth they were having with their customers. Again, air quotes. But
victims, let's use the correct terminology.
Some of which became customers, but they were infinitely helpful in some cases. And just going through things like, do you know how we got in? Oh, no, you don't. So we did it this way, this way, this way. By the way, that's not the only way we got in. If you pay some of the ransom, I can tell you the other way. And they did. And they started like filling in all these little gaps for them, going, by the way, you should really shut this problem down over here. Here's some money. It's just so interesting, like the back and forth. And there's even like notices in there about, oh, hey, you can pay us to come back and we'll help you fix the issues if you like. As if you're going, I've already paid you a ransom for holding all my data ransom. You're the type of guy I want to hire to fix my servers.
I mean, I've seen how much the compromise recovery firms charge. I'm just saying, ongoing fee, retainer, anybody listening, this is not an endorsement. Do not pay threat actors, please.
Absolutely don't.
That's sad.
Just remind me another thing in that chat transcript was one of them was like, "Oh, we don't think we can pay you that much. Like the company isn't making that much money." And the threat to turn around just went, "We've got your cyber insurance documents. We know you can afford it." I mean, like, you found that, huh? Sneaky little assholes. Have we strayed quite a lot from the?
We have. I was going to say that I think we can get it back on track because speaking of fixing things,
I
believe
here it is.
I believe, Keith, your second and final story is about something I thought was impossible, I will admit. It is apparently a unicorn of a customer who actually fixed everything.
Whoa,
so I want to hear this because this sounds crazy.
So at my last job, I was fairly notorious for aggressively repairing customer environments because they'd hire us for an IR. And I'm like, yeah, I see how they got it. Hold on, watch this. And I would just rebuild their entire identity plane from the ground up. That sometimes got me praised, sometimes got me yelled at, depending on the day and depending on how much the customer could use their environment after I was done. But this customer, absolutely phenomenal group of people. So I've had that notoriety for years of just rebuilding environments depending on where I was sent, not just at my last employer. It was just more pronounced there. But this customer I'd run into a while back, and I got sent out there for an incident response, and the VP was like, I've been really impressed by your work. We actually have hours on the contract. How much money will it take to never see you again? Like, personally, I like you. We get along well. Professionally, I never want to see you again outside of maybe conferences. Like, I have enjoyed your company greatly, but this can't ever happen again. And I was like, every IR person, every compromise recovery person, everybody who does remediation has that list in the back of their head where they're like, if you do this, and this, you're going to be defended against everything, but like the most advanced persistent type, or the most advanced actors out there. Even some of those guys are just going to decide you're not worth the effort to burn their fancy tooling on and just move on. So you've got that list. Everybody's got that list in their head. And so I told him, and I was like, I was just joking. And I was like, yeah, this is what it'll take. And he goes, how fast can you get it done? And I'm like, I can get it done as fast as you want me to. I mean, I'll work as many hours as needed. I'll basically give me a time window. And so my bosses were pretty flexible with what I was doing because they're like, hey, we don't have anything that's on fire at the moment. So just, hey, do what you're going to do. You're doing good work. Just keep on keeping on. And so I'm there with the customer and I'm like, okay, so all of your staff are going to have to move to YubiKeys. And he's, okay, perfect. So he just starts ordering YubiKeys. Like, he literally ordered the whole box of YubiKeys. And he's, all right, everybody's moving over to this. like today, everybody's going to be using these by like the end of the year. And actually, by the time I was done, all of their IT staff had moved over to the YubiKeys. Some of their financial staff, like all of their highly privileged roles, had moved over to the YubiKeys. So I was pretty impressed. I was only there for a couple weeks, about a month, and I was like, "Hey, EDR application whitelisting." Every time it's just like, "Sure, done, approved."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, so you're going to want to have pods." And he's like, "What's a pod?" I'm like, "Well, a pod is a workstation that's only for managing your infrastructure. Its only purpose in life is this." And he's like, "Well, why can't I have a VM?" And I'm like, "Well, technically, if you attack the host, you could do some manipulation of the VM." And he goes, "All right, what do we need for a pod?" So I'm like, "Well, you want a separate laptop. It's got to be clean. It's going to be minimal." He's like, "Sure, done." So we went ahead and deployed pods. His IT staff were using pods. One of the funniest things that happened was one of their employees used to play games on their machine, and I rolled out device risk scores, the whole 9 yards at this point. And so the application whitelist obviously did not include her game. And so she was trying to find ways around the application whitelist, and that was raising the device risk score. And like I had set it to trigger that if it had gone above a certain threshold, autopilot refresh the device.
Brilliant.
And they were okay with that. One of the IT guys was like, "That's not going to work." I'm like, "It's going to work." He's like, "No, it's not going to work." Tried to prove me wrong. And he was very smug right up until the point where his device got autopilot refreshed out of everybody. And the VP was like, "Hey, it works. We know it works." So these guys were great, and they were one of my favorite people to work with in a long time. And yeah, so this person is trying to run this game. It's failing. Device risk score is going up because this person is Googling, "How do I like the error messages that you get?" And it's like, "How do I evade this?" And she's trying all the PowerShell scripts, and obviously it's getting worse and worse. And the EDR is now starting to freak out. And finally, she just called the IT office that I was sitting in, and it's like, "I have this one program that I run, and I don't know why it's not working." And so the guy whose desk I was using picked up the phone and was like, "Yeah, I'll have the contractor look into it." Hands me the phone, and I'm like, "Oh, what program? And what's your device name? What's the software? Maybe I missed something on the allow list." She gives me the name. I'm like, "That's a game. Our game set." And I look at the actual employee. I'm like, "Our game's permitted here?" And he's like, "I mean, we have a policy that says no, but like historically we've been fairly permissive, but no, going forward we're not allowing games." And I'm like, "Okay. Well, I have to let you know that you've hit a threshold in which if you continue down the path you're going, your device is going to get reset automatically." And she's like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "This is an employee to employee conversation." Yeah, I didn't want to say "watch me" because you can't say that. But I handed it back to the IT employee. He was like, "He just wiped one of the other IT guys' laptops. Do not test this man." I'm like, "Yeah." But yeah, no, and I checked in with them every so often just to see how they're doing, and they've kept up. They've kept up with it. Like they'll drop me a line, like text me and be like, "Hey, quick question. I saw that this is the kind of attack that's going around. I know we're protected against this, but are we protected against that?" And I'm like, "Well, you kind of are, but there's some new mitigations, et cetera, et cetera." And they've kept up with it. They are probably just one of my favorite people that I've ever been sent to, and probably one of my favorite customer success type stories, probably in the last 10 years, of people who listened, adhered to the recommendations, and then actually institutionalized it for their corporate culture, where like some of their accountants were like, "Oh, we store files here." And they're like, "Is that OneDrive?" "Nope. Okay, you don't store files there anymore. Everything is now to be stored in OneDrive. Everything is now to be locked down. So if we have to autopilot reset a device, it just downloads everything and you just pick up and go from where you left off, because we're not having a situation again where we're denied access to our own financials, our own environment, without a very clear path forward." And yeah, they institutionalized the learnings, they keep up with it, and they're just, yeah, they are the unicorn client. They're my favorite, both customer and group of people. And if the opportunity ever came up to spend more time there, I would happily take it. Of just what was it? One of the lawyers poked their head in and was like, "Are we safe yet?" And the IT guy goes, "I can't give you a legal answer. I can just say with confidence, I didn't understand anything he said, which means that the bad guys probably don't know how to break in. And the bad guys who do know how to break in probably aren't going to want to deal with us. So we're good to go."
That's a nice way to be. And I love this whole attitude of not letting office or organizational politics get in the way of cybersecurity, because it's become such an important part of every organization now. And there's always this classic question now of who's responsible for cybersecurity within the organization. The answer is increasingly becoming literally everyone. Everyone has to be aware, everyone has to have buy-in, and you can't at this stage anymore in 2026 and onwards let office politics get in the way of that sort of stuff. Everyone has got to embrace it. And the results, as you've just spoken about, if people do, the results are there to be had. You can create like this beautiful workspace that no one actually wants to attack. The trouble is, half the time, it's just there's always some kind of blocker or some kind of thing getting in the way. There's some kind of internal politics that stops whatever it is happening. We've even had our ends, like politics get in the way of people doing pen tests or build reviews of servers before, just because they want their little environments to stay sort of obscure and on the outside and not touched by anyone, which is well and good until it gets attacked and is front and center of literally everything. And then like your politics war doesn't really stand up then, does it? So yeah, I love that as a story. That's great. I wish I had more on that side.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So the two things that when I knew the success had been had was the IT guy that I'd worked with called me and was like, "Hey, heads up, the executives are hiring a red team to evaluate the environment." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let me know what they find, because I need to know if I missed something." Like, they can't get a foothold in the environment. The red team guy here wants to talk to you. And I was like, "Yes, I know I've done my job well." But
Nice.
no, it is for folks who have flown through an American airport anytime in the last 20 years, security is everyone's responsibility. It's increasingly it used to be, oh, well, if you compromise the IT guys, then you've got the keys to the kingdom. But now with the financial aspects, with the intellectual property aspects, things are becoming far more, everybody has to take this seriously, of the accountant has to be aware of what they're paying so they don't pay things fraudulently. The developers have to be aware of what they're doing so they don't accidentally exfil IP. I know our colleague online, Spencer and Nathan McNulty, both say, like, hey, if you get the right dev bot, these days it's as good as getting domain admin, because devs have the ability to deploy things. They have all of the code base locally, and sanity forbid that you get a dev at one of the big companies, because then you have access to their source code repositories, and then you get to look through their code base, and you create this weird situation where you can actually find the adversaries have a better understanding of the code than the people who developed it or the people who bought it. My principal researcher, he has a saying of, exploitation is a certification of software understanding. And I kind of like that. Yeah. And there's single point of Steve and exploitation certification of software understanding, I think, are the phrases I'll carry forward here. But it's a interesting thing of, if you know how to make the system behave in a way that the developers never intended and the users don't know to look out for, you can do some real damage. And it's great now that we've integrated AI into all of our development work streams, and AI is apparently just kind of great at the full security thing.
Well, arguably now, maybe dev workstations and servers are maybe even more valuable targets than domain controllers these days. I mean, like the amount of keys and access they've got to like third-party things, and just the sheer amount of knowledge that goes on there is insane. It's arguably more valuable in some cases, I reckon, than getting hold of a few accounts. But it depends on the domain, I guess. I mean, all it authenticates to. But at the same time, if you've got things like AWS keys all around the place, and you've got LLM keys sitting there on like developer laptops and things like that, keys to kingdom, isn't it? Especially if that software you're developing is your business. So that's the thing you sell, not just like an internal app. If that's the thing that is your client-facing application you're selling, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because Google just had a problem where they told everybody, hey, your API keys are safe, always use them wherever you want to, they're fine. And then I want to say it was for Maps or something. I forget
It was
which one
Google
it is.
Maps.
Yeah. And people were pulling the keys and using Gemini because they changed something on the back end, and all those keys that had been restricted were now able to access Gemini. And people were like, wait, you made this change without telling us? And they're like, oh no, we published it in page 47 of this one technical bulletin that's buried, deep in some repo that half of you don't have access to.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But we did tell everyone.
Advancing knowledge. Yeah. But no, it's an interesting problem. And I know in incident response, you have to have those like big wins of you could just point to be like, I know that company is better for my presence being there. Because otherwise it could be just a grueling job, 120-hour weeks and mostly energy drinks and, whatever you can get DoorDash out of a vending machine.
Yeah, I don't want to show you what my desk looks like right now after a week of incident response. There's basically just coffee cups. You can't see it, but down here there's just coffee cups, and there's like there's like food down here and stuff as well. It's a mess.
Oh,
and I usually keep quite a clean desk, and I'm embarrassed of my own workspace here right now.
You're good. You're good.
Trust me. I fully sympathize because mine has been in that state back years and years ago. I want to say the Great Pyramid was built in 2012, 2013. At one of my old jobs, we were doing some very specific research, and it was rather exhausting. And before all the modern energy drinks came out, there was, Red Bull, Monster, and then there was an energy drink that I used to drink, which is called Rip It, in a couple of really specific areas. We built this pyramid in the office floor, like in the center of the office. So think of it as everybody has their offices in a ring. And then in the center was just where we would present stuff and go through work in the lab. And it was just a pyramid of these Rip It energy drink cans. And we used to call it the Great Pyramid. And then we started making offerings to the Great Pyramid. And then our management grew increasingly concerned about us. And they're like, maybe everybody should go home.
Yeah, so it is a bit like an LLM in that respect. It decided to make sacrifices and offerings to it. Everyone's now scared of it. Management's scared, a bit weary. Yeah. And now we need to just all go home.
Yeah, everyone's like, maybe the research team needs a break. They're inventing a religion around energy drinks. That's not a sign things are going well. I don't know if I have to fill out a new religion form here.
I love it if you have a new religion form. I think this happens too often. We need a form for that.
Yes.
Well, Keith, it was great having you on the podcast. Let our listeners know where we can find and follow you online.
Sure. So for those of you that only are profoundly surprised that I'm having a public persona, but I also have a Twitter now. At Keith Ramphal on Twitter, and alchemicalchef.io is where I publish a lot of my research. You can find a lot of my formal method stuff there. And as I'm confirming that my domain name is actually Alchemical Chef, that's how new some of this stuff is. Yes, alchemicalchef.io. That's where I publish a lot of my research on formal validation of software. I also tend to publish actual models for anything that I've built. Some of the stuff that I've built has just been rather incident recovery type tools of like, hey, an adversary took control of my domain controller. How do I sterilize and rebuild and confirm positive control of the identity plane? Some of it is for, hey, I have some stuff in Entra, but that's not where my primary research is. It's just that happened to be what was easy to model out. Some of the stuff that I'm doing now, which I'll be publishing soon, is setting up an MCP, and I know Zach Corman is cringing as I say MCP, but setting up an MCP server that will auto-generate formal models of your code and then give you the intent from the model as the LLM will interpret it and say, is this what you intended for your code base to do? So that we can start to bring a degree of understanding into this syntactic sugar soup that the LLM has produced. So yeah, look forward to seeing that soon. And thank you both genuinely for having me on. It's been a privilege.
Amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you all for listening. I've been Tib3rius. He's been Andy Swift. We've been joined by Keith Ramphal. And this has been Across the Podcast. You can find all of our social media links in the episode description, or on acrossthepodcast.net, and we will see you next time.
Take care. Bye, Steve.